Welcome back to Something to Complain About. T, are you having a decent day, or we just kind of in total meltdown mode over here?
Well, it's okay. Just so everybody knows, our recording platform has undergone some updates, and like when any other technology goes through updates, there are some snags. So we do apologize in advance because we have found that sometimes when it sounds like we have audio issues, we don't in the recording, and other times we think we sound good, but then we don't when I start editing. So if this is a wonky intro, we do apologize, but it is what it is. Remember who your editor is, everybody. It's T.
Yeah. First place. If there is a snag to be found, we will find it.
We will find it.
Yeah. Anyway, how's it going?
If there,
Besides
yeah.
technology, whatever today.
Oh, it's okay. I am starting to embrace my middle-aged gardener era.
You're getting ready to plant some
And
stuff and play in the dirt.
yes, sir. I am determined to grow some food this year, something other than basil and dill and two string beans and a baby carrot no bigger than the tip of my pinky. So I bought some grow bag. I'm going to have a container garden on my deck, and I've been digging up dirt to fill my bags with. So we had a sidewalk partially covered on the north side of our house. Sidewalk nobody uses. Got that cleaned off, dug out, had to transplant some plants, all of that. So I'm a little stiff and sore today. It's a lot of work, but I am determined to be able to grow something and then eat it.
Looking forward to the stories of what you have grown and how you prepared it.
If we follow tradition, I'll just stand out on my deck and eat my 3 little string beans and my baby carrot, and the basil does go inside, as does the dill. So, yeah. Yeah. So, in addition to my experimental cooking, I shouldn't say I am fully embracing experimental gardening this summer.
It sounds like a good time.
Yeah. There was a time where that would have been like the most boring thing to me and would not appeal to me at all. But now I kind of enjoy it. Going out and sitting in the sunshine and playing in dirt and trying to make things grow and sitting there going, grow, damn it. And then over watering everything because I forget when I water and I worry about not watering enough. So, but yeah,
I don't grow
it's
anything.
good. I keep forgetting the sunscreen though.
Well, you should probably
Yeah.
somehow remember the sunscreen.
You would think I would remember after having like fair skin that can get burnt for 48 years. I've been wearing the same
Yeah.
skin. But last night I was like, why does my face feel tight? And why is it kind of red? And it's like, oh, yeah, dummy. You're outside in the sun for 3 hours. So, yeah, no, I was out there for 3 hours hauling dirt and plants, and it was fantastic.
Grower. Like I do not grow things. Have I told you this story? This is people. I don't know if I should even tell this story in a format where other people can hear it, but maybe why not? I guess. Have I told you the story about the plant that my mom gave me that I watered for so long that did I tell you about this? Um,
No.
so I moved after graduation into a new apartment kind of out um in the Big O. Do you know where, or I don't even know if it's still there. There was this place called Charlie's on the Lake. Do you remember the restaurant?
Yeah.
So it was behind the lake.
Yeah.
So right behind Charlie's on the Lake was this little man-made lake, and there's this apartment complex behind it, and that's where I moved to. And it had this balcony that kind of overlooked the lake if you just kind of, trained your head around a little bit. And she put this big pot with
Mhm.
this big plant in, like, a heavy, heavy pot, lots of dirt, big plant in it out on that little deck thingy or patio, whatever you want to call it. I was thinking it was on the floor. And I was working crazy shifts. I would come home, it would be dark, and then I'd have this little reminder once a week. This was back before cell phones did what cell phones do now. So I had a calendar on my fridge, and it had
Mhm.
on every Friday or Saturday, whatever day it was, water the plant, water the plant. And for several months, I would just go out there and throw a thing of water on it and then go back inside and not look at it. And I was outside, maybe several months after I moved in there with my friend Kay and her husband. And I made a
Mhm.
comment about watering the plant. And she looked at me and she's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, I haven't watered it this week. I got to water it tomorrow. And she just kind of thought I was like, she gave me this look like I had lost my mind. And she was like, you realize it's not real, right? Uh, no.
Right.
I had only ever seen it like in the dark. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't done anything with it. I was like, it can't be fake. And so I went and grabbed it. And sure enough, it was one of those really real looking fake plants. And I've been watering it consistently. The only plant I've ever watered consistently in my life. And it didn't need it. I wanted to know why somebody would put that much dirt, real dirt, in a real heavy pot for a fake plant. Like it, I,
Why would you do that?
but my mom knew I wouldn't remember to water it, so she was just trying to make it look as real as possible and not make it hard on me. But somehow in the process of the moving, I missed it. So I watered a fake plant, but I killed all the real plants because I forgot to water them. So I don't have a green thumb. They're black.
Well, I don't have a green thumb either, but I am determined to continue to build upon my practical skills.
And
So, especially after our retirement
you
conversation,
might need them out
I'm
there in
like,
Santa Fe or in the
TV's,
desert, right?
I
You're gonna
might.
have to be able to feed Buffy something.
Buffy might be on his own. Buffy might be needing to watch his back.
True. True, true, true. Very true. Interestingly enough, our conversation today for this episode is a little bit, it's not really retirement focused, but it kind of is about age a little bit, right? So we found this kind of interesting article on, I don't remember where it was, Upworthy or something, and it was a whole bunch of um the question that they had asked and gotten a bunch of answers to from their readers was, what kind of wisdom do you have for young people? And so some of these are things I'm sure we have heard. There may be things we have even not been
Mhm.
started to think, but I don't think they're new, right? Like a lot of these, some of them are kind of a little bit more timely in the sense that they include some thoughts about technology that we would not have grown up with, but generally the thought is still not very different than
Right.
what we came to. So the article kind of starts out by saying age begets wisdom, also begets wrinkles. I mean, I don't know, you don't have any wrinkles, we're good, but we definitely have some wisdom.
Oh, I do.
Nobody gets to see them though, so as long as they can't see them, we don't have to tell them they're there.
Oh, okay. So we can lie. All right.
We're
Similar
Gen
like with
X.
my turkey
We
neck.
can do whatever we gotta do. We're Gen X, right?
That is true.
I, yeah.
So, but before we get into these, do you feel wise? Do you feel wise? Like, I don't feel like I'm yet of the age where I can start, like, actually calling something a bit of wisdom.
Yeah, I think it's probably because we don't want to admit that that's how old we actually are, right? It sort of becomes cognitive dissonance for us because we don't want to admit that we really probably do have some wisdom to share. Um, but no, to answer your question, I don't feel like I should be in a category where we're using words like wisdom to apply to things we say, or at least I say, but people do.
Well, I guess we are old and wise to some, cautionary tales for others, and ignored by yet another group. So it's all good. So what is the first piece of wisdom that they share?
Well, the thing that I found interesting about all of these is when we were growing up, there was a movement. Do you remember the tough love movement? And that's what we would have called it. That's what our parents probably would have called it. That's what our maybe grandparents would have even called it. Like they would have called some of these reality checks sort of tough love, which I kind of thought was
Mhm.
interesting, but we don't see as much of that anymore. So I think we think of them as wisdom, but there are like 17 or 18 things. We're not going to talk about all of them because I don't think all of them are necessarily all that important, but there's 8 or 9 or 10 of them that I think are useful. So the first one that they came up with was you won't feel different when you're older or when you have kids. You'll just be you. It's weird. So that's the phrase that somebody shared, right? And that got the
Mhm.
most votes from other Gen X readers. So you think this is a little bit about what you just actually said, right? Like, we don't feel like we should be in this category yet because we still just feel like we're
Right.
who we are. We're just us.
Yeah, that also makes me think of like my comment earlier about gardening, and where when I was younger, that would have been something I found incredibly boring. But I think we miss our internal evolution because we're always within ourselves. And I think until we actually kind of sit back and really think of things like, oh, I used to think this way, but now this way. But it's still, because it's still like a running narrative in your head, I can see that there's a lot of truth in this. Um, and it comes to the fact of even just like with my husband and I, almost every day, there is something one of us is doing. And, he's getting to be in his late 50s. I'm in my late 40s. And my brain and his brain refuses to recognize that the bodies need to kind of slow down a bit, and we need to kind of like pace ourselves a bit better. So, like yesterday when I was gardening, I set a timer for like 20 minutes because I now know that my back and my knees can only handle about 20 minutes of serious digging on my knees with a little shuffle.
Yeah, that's fair.
So as a reminder that I need to get up and stretch a bit and take my time getting up, because I've got that blood pressure thing where if I get up too fast and I get dizzy and everything goes black, which is fun.
Fun.
But hey, I'm 48. I get my fun wherever I can. But it's always that physical piece that I think surprises me, because you do see your body on the outside. You do see the gradual changes and you do notice the changes. And I always think like with the aging piece, it's like in 5-year increments. Seems like every 5 years I kind of hit a new plateau. But my brain It still amazes me to this day. I mean, I was thinking about it again the other day. I can't believe I have a doctorate. I can't believe I have a house. I can't believe I've kept my dog Charlie alive for 9 years. I can't believe that I'm a minister and I can marry people. Can't believe I pay my own taxes and cook my own damn food. So there always is still kind of that element of, even though I've been adulting for a long, long time, where it's still like, how was I afforded all this level of responsibility?
It's just sort of
And
foisted
I
upon
just
you,
function.
right? Like it's when you enter undergrad, when you enter college, when you leave high school, whatever it is that you do after high school, right? But for us, when we entered undergrad, it was like, oh, we're adults now, right? Like it was exciting, it was fun, we were ready for it, and now we're kind of like, oh, we're adults now. Maybe we didn't want this as much
We
as we
are.
thought we did.
Well, and then I think it's a downer too, because the older you get and you're still making step up as you go
Yeah,
along, and then you realize that your parents did the same thing, your grandparents did the same thing.
yeah.
And so like nobody ever gets it down. But yeah, no, I would totally agree with that sentiment. What's the next one?
Two, in 15 years, you're going to think the kids have gone too far and they're going to think you are old fashioned. This was one of the more popular responses. And I don't know what else to say because, yes, like, this is in a
Yeah,
lot of ways what we sort of developed this particular podcast for, just to talk about some of this. So,
it makes me think of an old episode of The Simpsons where, and I think I've brought this up before, where Grandpa's sitting there and he's like, "I used to be with it, and then I didn't know what it was, and now whatever it is, it scares me."
yes, that's fair.
For a bad
Yeah,
quote, but it's true. It's
yeah,
after a while, and again, kind of going through that transformation of like, yeah, it used to be cool. Then I wasn't sure what was cool, and it made me kind of sad. And now what's considered cool is starting to get a little scary to me.
I agree. It is
Yeah,
unfortunate, but this is, yeah, we're old enough to think that the kids are, and this is a rite of passage, I suppose, right? Like
I
every
think so.
generation goes through this where they get to the point where they're like, are you kidding me? Like we weren't like that, but we were. We we just have the distinct benefit of not having had digital cameras in our hands every second of every day so that people could have recorded our stupidity and other things that we had done. So like, yeah, they've gone too far. And
Oh, oh, but I was blessed with family members and family friends who have long memories. So
I get it.
now when I did go back home, there's always someone who's like, "Hey T, remember when you were 15 and you said," and of course I do, and of course it's mortifying, and then I have to sit there and be like, "Well, yeah, but I don't think that way anymore because I'm not 15 and stupid." I have evolved in some ways. My humor has not, but my brain has grown and developed
We're
in
just
other
I
ways.
think we've just gotten better using that kind of argument. Number 3 is a
Yeah.
longer one, but I think this one is
Okay.
important. Or I think this is one we can identify with. So the comment was, getting good at stuff will take time, sometimes lots of time. And sometimes you'll spend a lots of time on something and you still won't get good at it. That's the human experience. Some things you struggle with will come very easily to others, but some things they struggle with will come very easily to you. Don't be mad that someone possesses skills you
Hmm.
don't, and don't be a jerk for possessing skills that many other people don't. End quote. Right. So it's kind of a long thing, but like the reality here is, I think it's, and I wrote this in my note, but I don't think a lot of us realized when we were aging out of high school and into college and whatever, just how long it takes to actually become good at something, right? Like,
Yeah.
and what does that even mean? Like proficient, skill-wise, whatever. But like people who are musicians and who are professional musicians take decades of practice and instruction and
Well,
like sacrifice. And this is, you know, we thought we'd be good at
and
everything.
I'm not sure how true this is anymore, but I know when you think of like the bands who were big or made it big like in the 70s and the 80s, they easily had been together 10 or 15 years before they had their first big hit. And I remember when that always surprised me, like when um, I started getting into Aerosmith or in high school, so early 90s. And it blew my mind that they had started like back in the early 70s and had started releasing albums like in the late 70s or so. And but that is true that it does take a lot of practice and the dedication and the time. The one that always kills me is languages. And there are still people who walk around and go, I took a year of Spanish in high school, so I'm fluent. Yeah, no, you're not. Um, it's kind of funny because I had lunch with little T a couple weeks ago, and I told her I was still, I was studying Italian, and I had told her before, and she was like, "Oh, you're still doing it?" I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Oh, I didn't think you were." I was like, "I'm not a quitter." Um, Here I am sitting there on like day 90 with maybe a total of maybe 10 to 15 hours total studying. And she goes, "Tell me something in Italian." And it's like, okay, that's not how language acquisition works.
Not at this age.
Like, if we could all just, well, that really at any age, even when you look at children, their vocabulary is not building that quickly. Then that's when the language center of their brain is in their prime. There's always it's that instant gratification thing. I think with this, I think the key point is just to not only recognize that you have to invest the time and the energy, but then also just there's some things you're never going to understand or be able to do well because that's not where your talents lie.
Yeah.
It goes back to my belief in the little people living in my TV. It's just easier for me.
Yeah.
People have tried to teach me, just like opening the hood of a car. I know how to check the oil. I know how to add oil. I know how to check the windshield washer fluid. I know how to add that. I know how to add gas. That's all I need to know to get through life. And know that when the little lights start, flashing, it means to stop and call somebody who knows what they're doing. And that's okay. I can coast through life with that. I don't have to know the ins and outs, but I'm really glad somebody else
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good life lesson, and I think it's something would have been. I'm sure we were told this when we were that age. Like, I'm sure we were probably told stuff like this when we were in formative years, but it's easy to forget and not even think about it because at that age, you're sort of programmed to think that you are going to know everything and be able to do everything and all that good fun stuff. And then adulthood hits you upside the head with a bat, and then you realize, no, that's not how this goes. So yeah, it's understandable. We can tell younger people that,
Yeah.
and they're probably just going to look at us like we're crazy, but maybe not. Maybe younger people today are getting it. Maybe they look around and are like, hey, I don't have to be an expert. I can do this and I can do that and I'm good. But I know that's not how we were.
But also think about, especially up through high school and even through undergrad a bit, that's a lot of basic information that they've learned, and it is because it's basic and it's concrete, it can be mastered and internalized. Like, think about, like, I'm talking, like the alphabet, basic math, basic writing, basic understanding. So when you talk to an 18-year-old and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna like master playing the guitar in 6 weeks, their frame of reference is their whole life up to that point, unless they have studied an instrument or have participated in some more complex skills, has always been like, oh, I go to learn it and it's drilled into me because it is, it's the lowest level of Bloom's taxonomy. And then their approach is that you can learn everything that way. And it's not, because the older you get and the more advanced your education is, the more nebulous and complex concepts are. And it takes a long time to master those. And yeah, when you think back, how long does it take? And I think young people don't realize this either. Like, how long does it take to learn to even write your name in a legible, correct way? If you were me, it's a good 2 or 3 years. I can tell just by looking at the old cards I have, that I gave my mom. Backwards A's and upside down T's. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what was I smoking? This Mother's Day card to my mom. Oh, I was 5. Oh.
And
it probably took me 10 minutes to do. And I was concentrating. Yeah.
I haven't heard
So-
Bloom's taxonomy since I was teaching. It's been 23 years since I had to think about Bloom's taxonomy.
And I think about Bloom's every blooming day.
Well, you have to. I don't probably, but I had to put it in my
Yeah.
lesson plans. It had to be part of our lesson plans.
Well, as it should be.
Considering that I didn't go to school
As it
to be a
should.
teacher, that was something I had to learn on the fly, what Bloom's was and how to incorporate it into a lesson plan. Not that you're right, it should be, but it wasn't something I had formal training in, so I had to kind of learn as I went. But okay, so that was number 3. Number 4, nobody else wants to hear whatever TikTok you're watching. Buy some headphones. Okay, I don't know. This is this is like a no shit Sherlock kind of moment, right? Like, this is when if you're on the train, if you're on the bus, if you're at the gym, right? Like, you get to the point where you're like, I don't need to hear anything you're doing. Just put your headphones in. And also, like, I don't need to hear you having a conversation, especially at the gym or somewhere else. Like, that's stupid.
Just nobody else wants to hear your business. And nothing you're saying, like, I have never once in my life have I ever heard like a phone conversation where it was like someone saving somebody else's life. And so I was like, yeah, you want me to pick up some mustard on the way home? Or, like, oh, hey, Carol, there's like orange towels on sale today. You want me to pick up one for you? Like, nobody gives a flying fuck. Shut up.
This goes for everybody. Doesn't matter how old you are. Nobody wants to be involved. Just keep it to yourself.
Just keep it to yourself.
All right, number 5.
Nobody else gives a shit.
This will be fun. Number 5, being controversial is not the same as being interesting. I feel like this is important for our digital age in a way that it wasn't this was absolutely still a real thing when we were growing up, but there are so many more ways to be controversial and noticeable because of technology. Like, you can be controversial and you can have 1 million people see your video on a platform in the matter of hours, right? Whereas if we were controversial, it was, like it wasn't like the news traveled at the speed of light. It was simply the people around you knew you were being controversial, and then it maybe grew a little bit depending on where you were. but I think this is real. And I think your comment when we were talking about this before is true. Like this is in line with, being obnoxious or being an asshole. Like attention gaining
Well,
isn't the
I,
thing.
I think the issue with the social media piece is that, like the passage of time, what is controversial often does not become controversial. So things become more extreme.
Yeah.
And I think we have seen that in social media. And for whatever reason, when I read this comment, the first thing I thought of was, do you remember, and you probably don't, because of you grew up, but do you remember like in the early 90s when Madonna's sex book came out? For whatever reason, that kind of made me, I thought of that because I think that was like so controversial. But then it was like, then people got it and it was just like, you could look at it as either art or porn. It was just nude people and she was nude. And at that point, I think we'd all seen it before anyway. So, but the controversy sometimes, again, and I think maybe that's where I wrote down, the whole like the attention seeking piece.
Yeah.
And as far as like for the young ones to go home and say, like, and I don't even know how controversial this is anymore. Like, I'm moving in with my boyfriend, but we're not getting married.
So it depends on your
Those,
parents,
the
but not as much as before.
right, right. I'm a communist now. Um,
I'm an
I'm
atheist.
only going to wear black. I'm an
And
atheist. Come home, you have purple hair, pink hair. I mean, this is all part of it too. I think is just kind of that, especially your teen years and early 20s. It's that just trying on new things to see who you are, and also a bit of that rebelliousness. And frankly, like a lot of what I did it just to see if I could get a rise out of my mom or my grandmother.
you? Did you
Yeah.
get a rise out of
So,
them? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I assumed you had, but I just wanted to double check and be
Yeah.
like, how did C handle
I
that?
mean, did
Did she make
did
you walk in front of the car again?
did I ever tell you about Easter 1996?
Oh.
My grandmother was on a roll, and finally, and this is Easter dinner. Okay. And one of my aunts was asking me how things were going and in college and stuff. And so I told her that I'd gone to a synagogue the week before for one of our courses. And my grandmother got all upset. And this is, again, Easter dinner. So, and about 25 people. And I'm like, well, Grandma, Jesus was a Jew. And that pissed her off. Then reality hurts. And then said,
It's right
and then
there on the
said,
cross too. Like, right? You're talking about Easter dinner and you could have just been like, I mean, on Good Friday we talked about this, INRI, right?
you're on the crucifix hanging up over the dinner.
That's what it means.
Right, right above, right above the painting of the Last Supper. And she made a comment, something along the lines of like, I don't need to talk that way. And I go, well, I mean, we're Catholic, so we're nothing but a bunch of fallen Jews anyway. I was actually excused from the table after that.
So you figured out how to get away from you figured out how to get it to work better for you.
I did. Yeah, I was 20 at the time. So I had that. No, I was 19. I had it mastered. Yeah. So I was like, bye. And so, of course, then, my grandmother calls my mom. And my mom was working 3 12-hour shifts that weekend. She calls my mom at work. My mom calls me by my full name. And I know I'm always in trouble when I hear my middle name. And she's all like, what did you say to your grandmother? And I go, I told her that Jesus Christ was Jewish and that we were nothing but a bunch of fallen Jews. Not a lie. And Mom's like, well, no, that's true. But quit torturing your grandmother. And I'm well, what do you put up to me having to make this statement? So yeah, that was just only like one little snippet. So because then my mom burst into tears another time, and it was terrible. And that was the last time I celebrated Easter with my family.
We're completely brokenhearted
Is
about it.
when I said I was excused from the table, that was a permanent excusal. It was not welcome back.
Okay. Well, that leads us
Just for stating fact.
to number 6 because this applies. Just because you fucked up doesn't mean you're a fuck up.
I didn't fuck up. It was all
I know,
intentional.
yeah.
I was very pleased with the outcome of I think this is one, and I think you wrote in your comments, that this is a hard one to internalize. And it is. And I think it's one that we have to remind ourselves through life, and why it's important to separate like our decisions and our actions from who we really are, with the caveat that you do have to kind of monitor it, because if the same patterns keep happening, it doesn't mean that you're a fuck up, but it means there may be something going on that you believe you are, so you keep doing it. So you need to address that. How about that?
This is something that never leaves, right? I see this every day in practice. I see this with patients who are trying to improve their nutrition status or whatever, right? They're trying to lose weight. They're trying to do whatever. And they, even in their 40s and 50s and 60s, are extremely judgmental about themselves, right? They see themselves as fucking up when they don't do whatever the goal was for the week or the 2 weeks or the whatever it is. So like, this is one of those things like what you're talking about, where we're all going to screw up. We all make mistakes. That's part of life. It's
Right.
normal. Your mistakes don't define you unless you basically just keep making them intentionally, right? If you choose not to learn from
Right.
them. But that's also very different than having an internalized subconscious driver to your behavior. That's a different thing. And I think
Right.
people have to be able to do that. But this is important for especially young people to get their head around, because if you start to believe when you're preteen, teen, whatever, that you are completely a fuck up, then your behavior is going to continue to show that. Like, it will just keep being. So you have to separate your decisions from your reality. Like,
And I think it goes even beyond that. I mean, I think it's always good to remind even young adults and individuals, even in their late 20s into early 30s. There was a situation at work not too long ago where, in a meeting, things came to a head. And the individual who was in charge of the meeting was just, she's new as a supervisor, as a leader, and was just devastated that things came to a head. And it was ugly, but I mean, I've seen uglier. So, but I was talking with her a few days later, and I said, first of all, this was going to happen because stuff's been brewing for months and everybody's stressed, and so it's been brewing, so it's going to happen. That just happened in your meeting. And these things do happen. So, but the important thing now is, what can we do so that this doesn't continue to happen? Lessons learned. There's, and that's why we debrief and we reflect and those things, because then we can look back and go, what could have I done differently? Um, and sometimes things just happen, but it doesn't mean that we're not good at what we do. It doesn't mean that we're a fuck up. It just means sometimes things happen. And sometimes we find, even with, there's a reason why there's the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
That's fair.
So yeah, you just gotta practice that and separate yourself. Yeah. Separate
Number 7 is a
separate from your emotion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part, though, because your emotions are what are driving how you feel about what you just did and how you feel about being wrong, right? Like, I think there's a lot to be said for realizing that it's okay to be wrong.
I think you're right. But that's where the practice comes in, right? Because one of the first things you do in the practice is you actually learn how to try to separate yourself. But that takes something, it takes a while to master, if ever, as well. So,
Number
yeah.
7,
What's the next
we're
one?
almost to the end of the list. Number 7 is a lot like number 3, so things will likely take significantly longer to achieve than you think. Uh, so, I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot more to
Yes.
say about this one other than the fact that it is absolutely frustratingly true, and it can be true for an awful lot of things that, we all have. What's the, is it a Steinbeck quote? The best laid plans of mice and men often go astray, or whatever that is. Um, this is your reality,
Oh,
is like, just because
um,
we want to do things and we want to get them done and we think they're going to be done in a certain timeline, life almost always intervenes, and that's not how it happens. And it's okay.
and that's what your mid-20s to mid-30s are for, because that's when all of these special laid plans that you've made out for yourself start going to shit,
Very quickly.
in my
Very
experience.
quickly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just hold on, guys. You'll
You'll get there
find out soon
as
enough.
you get closer to retirement, like we are, right? Like, whatever that is. Number 8. This is also similar to one that we've already talked about, but it says not everybody can be an internet sensation. Somebody has to drive the dump truck. Now, when I was a kid, it used to be the world needs ditch diggers too, right? Which was always like, sure, we need doctors and lawyers and whatever, but we also need ditch diggers and garbage men and whatever else. So this
This is a piece that I always try to address when this conversation comes up, and it does. Having worked in education, it comes up more often than not. But it isn't just the money piece or the status of the job, but you also have to consider there is something to be said about honest work and working in a role that aligns with your principles, your values, your morals, and that those are not being compromised in pursuit of something a little more shallow.
yeah.
Yeah. Same way, like, I don't know, like growing up, how many of my classmates in small town Kansas thought just because they played a sport, they would get a full scholarship
Yeah.
somewhere to play football or volleyball or basketball. And you know how many did? There might have been one or two for a community college, but otherwise, but I mean, already back then they were all banking on those things are fleeting, but what is can you go to bed at night knowing that you're living according to your values and your ethics and you're not compromising them for something that is just fleeting. And I think that's kind of the deeper with that, other than, I mean, there is that superficial level of, well, not everybody can be famous, which is true, which is a good reminder when you're talking to an 8-year-old. But as you're talking to somebody who, is at an age where they should start making some real plans or real thinking towards what their future is going to look like, that is then where those other pieces come in. Like, it might look like fun, but are you going to be able to live with yourself after that?
That's fair.
And I've worked with a lot of people who did a lot of, I'll put it this way, held a lot of employment that destroyed them later on in life, because they did have to compromise a lot of themselves to be successful in those areas. And it's not, money is not worth breaking yourself over. And that's all I'm going to say. Money and fame.
We got 2 left. Number 9, as you get older, you just keep realizing how dumb you were last year.
From the year before that.
And
the year before that. And then you think of like how absolutely stupid you were at age 7.
Yes.
And yeah.
Which, I mean, we've talked about before, right? The more educated you get, the more experiences you have, the more you start to realize,
oh yeah,
you're just starting to scratch the surface. And there's a whole lot of actual benefit in realizing that.
There is. There actually is. And I've said more than once, I have never felt so, and I'm not going to say stupid, but just uneducated and uninformed as I am in this time of my life where I am the most educated. Yeah. Like this past year, I've been working with a new department, and it has literally, and I appreciate everybody who has trained me, because like I'm coming in and they have to call me doctor, but then there's like I've never seen before, and I keep apologizing. Like I used to work at a big enough place where I could go down the hall and somebody else did this, and now I'm part of the team responsible. So I got to learn, right? But I think that that's kind of the fun of it, right? Because when you realize you don't know something, can generate then that curiosity to know more about it, or seek out somebody who knows about it. And that's okay. We're not meant to be all knowing. How boring would that be if you knew everything and experienced everything you ever needed to know, or that ever exists? That'd be boring.
It would be, yeah, it would be. All right, the last one, number 10, the heartache. This is more emotional, I guess. The heartache you're going through consumes everything now, but it will be nothing but a footnote in the future. You'll rarely think about it later, and when you do, it won't hurt. It's hard to hear that your pain isn't the worst in the world when you are feeling it, but it does help to know that it won't mean as much as it does in this moment. So this is more of this probably can go for not just heartache that comes along with relationship issues. It can go for heartache that comes along with loss of loved ones or friends. Probably can also come along with loss of position, right? If you lose your scholarship or you lose your place in school, maybe you lose your job. Keeping in mind that this isn't the end of the road, that this isn't this isn't going to consume you forever, that this is something that you will grow through and survive. And it doesn't feel that way. But knowing that that's part of a process, I think is probably helpful. But it's very hard. Doesn't matter how old you are. It's hard to step out of that moment of, for lack of a better word, grief, and move on.
I think the only thing I would add to that is to recognize that things take time. I think sometimes we have, as a culture in this country, an urge to, okay, you're over it or you cry. So now let's move on. Let's move on. Allow yourself time to grieve. But I do agree. And there's going to be some things that are always going to hurt a little bit. Like, I'm talking about like a massive loss of like a parent or a close family member. That's always going to hurt, but it will lessen over time. But there's things now that I remember being very, very upset about, like in high school regarding friend group and this and that, that I remember being mad, but I don't remember about what. Um, so yeah, there's some truth in that, but I just would say, it's not like an on off switch.
Does not work like
It's
that.
gonna fade away. No, sometimes it'll slowly fade. Sometimes it'll kind of pick back up a bit, depending on the type of loss. But if you can live through the immediate piece of it, you can survive the memory. How about that?
Yep. Well, we did it. We got through 10 of them.
So, hot damn, I do not feel any wiser.
Nope, neither. That's because we were wise coming in. So we were just expounding on our wisdom. We'll just go with that. It's more fun. Anything else you want to say before we wrap this one?
No, but how precious of you to think that any Gen Zers actually
give a shit,
listen to us.
I mean, we can hope, right?
Little T gets her a monthly dose of Gen X angst, But she loves me and she still doesn't listen to us. I think probably because I think she tried once and she got bored, which I don't blame her. I didn't want to listen to anybody pushing 50 either when I was, 23, 24. Not going to blame her there.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. Oh. Well, I guess for everybody listening, throw some information for us in the comments if these sound like things you heard or maybe that you say, or if you just think these are not wise whatsoever. We'd certainly love to hear that. Remember to like and subscribe. Get your friends to like and subscribe and get their friends to like and subscribe. And remember, as always, we're free. Completely and totally free. So, not a problem. And if T doesn't have anything else, then we'll just close this one out and we will see all of you next time for something else to complain about. T?
Right. I have nothing other than everybody be good and share your wisdom.
There you go. We will see you all next time. TNA out.
Bye, everybody.